Hey, deserving listeners, 90 Day Fiancé, let's watch.
Ari, I came here just for my social media.
I want to talk about your cheating.
Yeah,
Are you
no.
going to talk about the cheating?
Okay, so I've been really wondering about Biniam's, where he's at. We've heard a lot from Ari. We have heard hardly anything from him. It could be argued we've heard basically nothing. So he just said something that's interesting. I want to rewind that. I think he was saying, I'm only here to get my passwords. If that's the case, then he's basically saying our relationship is over, has been over, which would, I think, explain why he was posting pictures of himself kissing someone else.
Ari, I came here just for my social media.
Yeah, I came here just for my social media. Now, they're editing this, so maybe it's Frankenstein. But, okay, I came here just for my social media, his passwords, and his email. He's talking about TikTok, email, Instagram. She has the passwords.
I want to talk about your cheating.
Yeah,
Are you
no.
going to talk about the cheating?
Because I'm not comfortable for like something. I feel like you control me.
I'm getting a migraine. I just like.
What is the problem if you're not good? What is the problem?
So they're rehashing what they've already talked about. I don't know if I've shown all the bits, but there's nothing new to this information here. They both seem a little bit more willing to actually try to talk, which is a good thing, I think.
Why is this the thing that you care so much about?
Are you going to talk about the fact that you've been cheating on me?
Yeah, first you have to give it to me, and then I will talk to you about that one.
So until you get.
Yeah, I was wondering about that. I was wondering if Benny is thinking, if I talk with her about the reality, which is that we basically broke up, or at least I thought we had, and I met someone, if I talk with her about that, I'll never see my passwords. Or she could, in a rage, she could ruin my brand. She could say stuff and blackmail me or something. You know what I mean? I don't know if that's what he's thinking, but you could imagine someone thinking that. And so he's thinking, I need to get my passwords. And maybe in front of cameras, in front of other people, I can say the word controlling enough times that she'll finally give me the passwords. And then I'll tell her and she'll freak out, but, or some, I don't know. I'm sure you know, but I'm just wondering what's going on.
This password, you're not going to talk about the cheating at all.
I came here
If
for
you're
fix
not
the
willing
furniture.
to address the fact that.
The other possibility that I think is even more likely, now that I think about it, is that he did cheat, or at least somewhat cheated, which is still cheating, right? Meaning that they weren't officially broken up and he met someone. Why would he post the pictures himself? Maybe he accidentally, or I don't know. We haven't heard his side of the story, but so he knows that he did something wrong and he is willing to talk about it, maybe even apologize or something, but he needs his passwords before they get into it because he's worried about his brand or something. I don't know.
It's like something, like do what I said.
Okay.
You know, but for building trust, this is for me like the trust. The beginning, she can give it to me, my trust back.
I mean, how could I trust someone who cheats on me?
So with that being said, do you want this relationship to work?
Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't.
Okay.
Okay, so I think why the therapist asked that question was to have a jumping off point or a foundation to begin the process of helping Ari to give him his passwords back. And if Ari had said, yes, I do want this relationship to work, then the therapist, I'm guessing, would say, okay, well, then, yeah, giving him his passwords back is important. Now, maybe there's a more fundamental question of whether you stay together or not, would you like there to be a working relationship between the two of you such that you can co-parent your kid? Now, one of the major details here, and I don't know how this occurred between the two of them, but I'm remembering a previous season where Biniam was he didn't have access to his kid. I think because Ari decided to move back to New England, if I remember right, or Jersey or somewhere. And he was really sad about it. And I remember, and that happens sometimes, and maybe, it's what has to happen. But she went to Ethiopia, and I keep wondering, that must have been in a previous season, or they didn't show it. But one, I'm just curious as to why Ethiopia of all places, because like I was saying in a previous video, my memory of her in Ethiopia was that she didn't really have that close of a relationship. I mean, she knew his family, but they also were convinced that he was cheating, so they were kind of on her side. It's all kind of coming back to me. So now, maybe she just really likes living in Ethiopia, wants to raise her half Ethiopian kid in Ethiopia. I don't know. But at the very least, for Biniam trying to get his career going in LA, this means that he won't have contact with his son. Now, maybe for him, he's just like, yeah, I could have gone back to Ethiopia, but I'm choosing my career, and it's not great that I'm not with my son all the time, but this is the situation. Or does he think she is either not caring about my relationship with my son, or she's doing this vindictively? I don't know. There's just a lot of questions. But so that face on the therapist, I think, is, oh, okay, well, then I think we've reached an impasse. And so if I were in these shoes, I would immediately reestablish the conversation of, how can I help? What do you want me to help you with? Because I came in here assuming that you were here to work on your relationship. I mean, I might not say this out loud, but I'd be thinking, I came into this room to do this sort of emergency session, because I think that's what this is, to help repair. But I'm hearing now, and this is me thinking, that Ari doesn't know if she wants to repair, is almost kind of saying she doesn't care anymore. She's beyond that point, and she only wants to harm him. She knows she's doing this vindictively. She said this in a previous one-on-one interview. She's like, maybe it's vindictive that I'm keeping his passwords. I don't know. So then as a therapist, you're like, okay, well, how can I help? And there might be nothing you can do. The clients, Ari would have to say, I would like your help figuring this out, or I'd like your help with feeling differently so that I can feel better about giving him the passwords. In all likelihood, what Ari would say, I don't need help. You need to fix him because he's cheated, and you need to tell him that he has to tell me. And then I would say that I don't have the capacity. That's not a thing that therapists can do, even ethically, is to on your behalf blast someone else. I might be able to lay out a pathway of like, here's what I recommend if you want is therapy, and let's explore, and maybe there will be a point where each of you will feel like you can willingly give the other person what they're asking for. But it's not, I don't have the capacity or the ethical ability to force either one of you to do something on behalf of the other person. Right. So the therapist is asking, what would it take? So this is a very kind of practical CBT, maybe solution-focused question of how do you get off of that merry-go-round? I think she means by the merry-go-round is that merry-go-round of conflict. And then Ari says, I did get off the merry-go-round. I left him and took our child and moved to another country. So I think the therapist is like, oh, well, that's not... Yeah, so I guess there's a third option of jumping off the merry-go-round of conflict into renewing your relationship, or there's another jump, or just leaving the playground altogether. This episode is sponsored by BetterHelp, and if you sign up, please use the link below because that really helps us out. So it's autumn, back to school, and it's also a time where the days grow darker, which can be tough for some people. But to me, this is also a time for coziness and meeting up with a friend for coffee or something and wearing your best fall jacket. And I don't know why, but the fall also seems like a time for therapy. But as the days grow darker, we might cocoon and avoid reaching out to a friend or to a therapist. But after we do those things, we often will say, why didn't I do this sooner? Well, BetterHelp is one avenue that you can use to reach out to a therapist. And for 12 years, BetterHelp has been fine-tuning their process of matching people with the right therapist. So this month, don't wait to reach out. Whether you're checking in on a friend or reaching out to a therapist yourself, BetterHelp makes it easier to take that first step. Our listeners get 10% off their first month at betterhelp.com/Kirk. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/Kirk.
Has it helped?
It's helped a lot.
Yeah, it's interesting. I didn't know I guess I kind of knew that I'd get a chance to talk about therapy technique and style. And yeah, this is very CBT. I mean, CBT is a very broad topic, actually, and it tends to be identifying of this sort of therapy, this kind of solution-focused. And solution-focused sounds like you might be able to understand it. It's like focused on solutions. It is, but it's a complete departure from the way people normally think. It's not just focusing on solutions. It's extremely hard to become a solution-focused therapist. You have to become you have to break down like a lot of human assumptions about how the world works and how therapy works. And anyway, so point is that she's asking, did it work for you? And that is a very practical kind of CBT question. It also kind of gets at what the goal is, right? And Ari's like, yeah, it worked for me because I wanted to get away from him. So again, I would stop and I'd say, okay, we got to talk about what you want from this retreat, what you want from me right now. Now, maybe they've already had that conversation and they edited it out. Maybe Ari said, I want to explore, and that's what they're doing.
Has it helped you as a couple?
No, it has not helped
It
us.
has
as a
not
couple.
helped you guys. So one thing.
Right. So I imagine for a lot of people in the audience watching the show, that could feel like a burn on Ari. The question of, has it helped you as a couple? And Ari's like, no, that hasn't helped us as a couple. It's not a burn because I don't think either one of these individuals actually want to improve. Well, maybe they do. Maybe that they're happily married again in the future. And maybe there's a pathway there. I mean, I know that there is a pathway, but it's unclear if either one of them actually want to improve. He literally said, the only reason why I'm here is to get my passwords.
Thing is that if you both said last night, I want to be in this marriage, but your actions and the way you talk to each other doesn't say that.
Exactly.
So the social media thing, I understand why you want it back, but you have never once said, I want my wife back. What do you want in regards to this relationship? Do you want it at all?
Okay. Yeah, I would say both of them. It applies. And this would be a good question to ask both of them. So I'm interested in hearing this. I'm really curious as to where Biniam is at, and I'm worried that he is an oppressed individual in this scenario because he's coming from a place of disadvantage socially and financially and green card wise, I think. And I think he is focused on survival before moving on to the more higher up the Maslow's hierarchy of like happiness and of marriage and stuff. I don't know. I'm guessing there's a section of you that think I'm giving him too much of the benefit of the doubt. And maybe I am. I just don't really have I like both of them. I always have. I think they're both relatable people. It's just, it's very common to go down these roads and have it end up in this place. But I'm really worried that we're not on a level playing field. And this is why it's important in couple therapy in particular to at least raise questions in your mind and possibly ask these questions of the couple of what is the power landscape here? Because there's a good chance that he's focused on my survival financially and as a father to provide for my kid depends on me getting those goddamn passwords. And until I get those passwords, I can't think of anything else. I can't think of marriage. I can't think of improving our marriage. I can't think of communication. I need those passwords for my survival. Now, that might not be true. Maybe he wants his password so he can cheat. I don't know.
Yes, I want fixes this relationship.
All right. So if that's the case,
So I would ask him, I don't know if this therapist has watched the show. I'm guessing not because I don't know. I'm assuming. I don't know. But I would ask Benny, okay, you say relationship, but what kind of relationship do you want? And I would really make sure to state up front, I do not have a vested interest in you staying together or splitting up or staying the same. That is not my job. And personally, I honestly don't have a vested interest even personally, because live and let live. Everyone has to make their own choices about that. In the same way that I don't expect my wife to order a certain dish when we're at a restaurant or something. It's like I want her to want what she wants and get that. So same with you. So what do you want? How much do you want this marriage to be there and to get better? Because he's saying relationship, and he could just, I don't know if he means marriage or if he just means I want us to be friends.
you got to do the work and you got to listen to each other. But we're not going to get through all of this right here in this session. We do have an activity, which I think this will lead us into that, where you guys can start to have.
So it's a style thing, but I would never say something, particularly in the first session, particularly with a couple like this. You've got to do the work. No, they don't. They'll do the work if they want to. And why? I don't care if they do the work. And when you have this established, it establishes this expectation that you have a vested interest for whatever reason, either because it's your self-esteem or you've been tasked or something, with the producer of the show. And the clients are no longer approaching therapy from their heart. It's complicated by this therapist wants me to do something, which throws a wrench, especially in a couple like this. It could ruin therapy from this point forward, because they could say, oh, so I'm a bad boy if I'm not working to improve this relationship. I'm a bad girl if I'm not trying to make this marriage better, if I'm not accommodating in some way. I would never do this. Now, it could be argued that it is a factual statement that she's saying, and that it does help people to motivate themselves, and it is basically true. It's sort of the way that lay people would think therapists would act, and it is the way that some therapists do act. But that isn't how therapy is. Therapy is voluntary, and each task and each goal in therapy is completely voluntary. And to tell you the truth, I don't want to work with a couple that doesn't want to do therapy. I don't want to work with any client. I never have. In the beginning of my career, I couldn't really detect it. I just thought maybe there's something wrong with me when I had a client that wasn't moving forward, or wasn't, or there was some wrench was in the gear system. And then over time, I learned of this whole thing called the stage of change, and it was revolutionary to me. It's a fairly simple idea, but there's stages to change. There's what we call pre-contemplative, which is the first stage. There's another way to word it of just like, I don't wanna, but anyway, it's. Maybe it would help if I talked about, there's the action phase, which is a higher level of stage of change, meaning that the person recognizes they have a problem and they are taking action to change that. They're not there, right? Maybe they can get there. Now, there's the pre-action phase, which is you recognize there's a problem. This is the contemplative. There's different systems, but we call it the pre-action or the contemplative state, where there's a problem, but you're not really ready to take action. You might know you probably should take an action, or to look for action, or you might even know specifically what action to take, but you're not ready to do that. There's a problem. Okay, and then we work our way back, and then there's pre-contemplative, where you don't recognize that there's a problem and you don't want to take action because you don't think there's a problem. There's a later stage after action, which is after you fix the problem for the most part. There's maintaining the solution. It's sort of ongoing. So you could, roughly speaking, you could say there are 4 broad stages of change. So if a client is pre-contemplative, meaning they don't think that they have a problem, they think the other person has a problem, then you have to recognize that as a therapist and not proceed forward as if they're in the action phase, because it can be very frustrating for everyone involved, clients, but particularly therapists, because you just feel like you're never getting off the ground and you're getting this resistance or something when you just haven't acknowledged that there are different stages of change. And I'll tell you, I was upset when I'm 10 years into my career and I'd never even heard of the concept. Now, I suspect that therapists today are more likely to have heard it, but it certainly isn't emphasized enough.
Some conversations about these issues and to see if we can find any area where you guys can find a common ground so we can build off of that.
Again, do they want that? Of any of the couples here, I'm trying to think. Natalie and Josh are not a couple, so there's that. But of all the couples that are a couple here, I would say Ari and Vinny, it is not clear that they actually want any of this. In fact, every indication is that they don't. But maybe they do and they just aren't saying it, or it's been edited out. The other thing I'll say is that what I believe to be her brand of therapy is actually somewhat conducive, more so, to those who are at their phase. The kind of practical style is a way to really address stage of change in a more direct way, or at least indirect, which I think is kind of happening. It's hard to explain. I don't want to get in the weeds, but anyway.
But let's put the internet and computer and social media and all that aside from today, because this process can't get going if we are stuck on the social media. We got to get to trust.
So yeah, it's a good strategy, and that is one way to do it. Of just like, look, for now, let's get away from that central question that the two of you have been fighting about, which is about the passwords. They're saying social media, but they really should say his passwords, access to his accounts, his email. You don't call it email social media. It's his fucking email account, his work email account. He doesn't have access to it. I could see that working. I could see this working. At the very least, to loosen things up so that they can break up in a more healthy way. All right. Well, I want to remind everyone that we are basically carbon neutral at Psychology in Seattle. I don't know exactly how to measure that, but we either are carbon neutral or we're close, because mainly we work at home, Stacy and we have solar panels. Now, Seattle doesn't have a lot of sun, but we have a lot of solar panels. I really went for it, and I'm not saving any money by the investment. I think it'll take me like 30 years or something to make back the money, or 15 years. It was many years to break even on the investment. But I wanted not only myself as a human to be carbon neutral, but I also wanted this business. I also don't drive hardly ever. There'll be literally, I think not too long ago, there was like 10-day stretch where I never left the house, or I didn't drive my car anyway. And now you might think, well, Kirk, you got to like touch grass. Well, here's the trick, is that you have people come to your house. And then, is that touching grass? Kind of. Friends and parties and stuff like that. So, we're carbon neutral-ish. Does that matter? It matters to me a lot. And I don't know. I didn't do it to advertise it. I did it for myself. But I thought when I would see advertisements of other, like there's a local restaurant chain called Taco Time in Seattle, or the Pacific Northwest. And they advertise that all of their containers and napkins and everything is all compostable, and cups and straws and everything, like everything. You can just take the whole thing and just put it in the compost. And that makes me so much happier, and I feel a lot better. And frankly, I guess I'm more likely to go there. Maybe I'll go there today. So even though I like Taco Time, and always have since I was born, essentially, I would still go there, but I feel even better. So for people that already come in this channel, just imagine it feels a little better, right? So take care of yourself, and let's take care of the planet, because we all deserve it. We really, really do.